Honorable Vincent Byron, Attorney General, Mr. Mansfield Blackwood, USAID Eastern and Southern Caribbean Office, Ms. Deborah Wahlberg, the Chief of Party for Creative Associates International, permanent secretaries, heads of department, other members of the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, my UNDP colleagues, and of course the members of the media. Good morning to everybody. On behalf of the UNDP and OECS Subregional Office, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to everybody here this morning. Today, as Juliette mentioned, marks an important moment for us. In many ways, some of you would have been with us for the official launch of the project back in November. Really, this is the first day of our collective work in a certain way. It signals the rollout of our new citizen security project, the strengthening evidence-based decision-making for citizen security, which we call CARISECURE, here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. The project is made possible by a very generous support of USAID. And I'm very happy we're working on this project in the broader context of USAID's YES project, which Mansfield will discuss and introduce in more detail. And of course that we're working in conjunction with Creative Associates and with the OECS Commission, each of whom has a different part of the YES project. The project spans 10 countries and has an emphasis on 3 priority countries: St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis, and Guyana. So from our perspective, the leaders of the region have taken a very courageous step in recognizing that there are challenges to citizen security in the Caribbean, including the high incidence of crime and violence in the community and at the national level, as well as the pernicious influence of organized crime at the transnational level. In particular, youth involvement in criminal activity throughout the region has become increasingly prevalent, and it is crucial to break that cycle of youth involvement in drugs, gangs, crime, and violence. That requires much more than just the sanctions of aggressive anti-gang policing, better community policing, fewer firearms, effective counter-narcotics, and improved rule of law. We also need strategies that aim to reduce rising levels of crime and violence through improving the quality of life, community action, agile and effective judicial systems, restorative justice, and education based on values and the respect for law and human rights. At UNDP, we very much believe that the challenges of citizen security can be best solved in a sustainable manner through multi-sectoral, people-centered approaches, grounded in solid data and evidence. Improved citizen security is not just a reduction in crime rates, but also a set of positive choices that come from a sustainable, participatory, and multidisciplinary strategy. So to strengthen citizen security, the policies need to address the root causes of crime, taking into account the type of crime being committed, the gender and age of the victims and perpetrators, location and time. Sound evidence is necessary for policy formulation to guide its execution and in assessing progress towards crime reduction. So in order to do this, the data that we are going to use needs to be gathered in a systematic way and at a consistent quality level. 2 years ago, UNDP organized a regional workshop which brought together representatives from ministries of national security, youth, social transformation, and youth organizations from across the Eastern Caribbean to look at how to move forward with the recommendations that were in UNDP's Caribbean Human Development Report on citizen security. In 2015, we continued these discussions through a series of national dialogues, including one here in St. Kitts and Nevis, which identified that up-to-date and reliable data as the #1 priority for our joint work, since it was an essential ingredient of developing evidence-based policies and community-based programs that focused on prevention. These dialogues and the active support of USAID have brought us here today. The CARISECURE project focuses on improving the quality of citizen security data and thus your ability to design effective policies and programs to prevent youth crime and violence. The broader YES project has, as Mansfield will explain, a specific focus on youth. And really, too often when we read accounts of violent crime in the region, we see that the victim or the perpetrator, and all too frequently both, were persons under the age of 30. We know that exposure to violence at a young age is associated with long-term physical, mental, and emotional harm. It puts young people at a greater risk of failing in school and subsequently struggling to find or to keep a steady job. It could also mean they will come into more frequent contact with the juvenile justice system, and many of these, and without effective rehabilitation strategies, many of these young people can become repeat offenders and find their way into the criminal justice system. So how do we ensure that this difficult period, this period of turbulence, of youth, becomes a window of opportunity, a chance to reinforce positive behaviors or minimize the risk of developing violent tendencies? We can achieve this by adopting a systematic and coherent approach, again, to developing evidence-based programs and programs, test out what works, measure what works, and implement the things that work. Through this project, the CARISECURE project, UNDP is looking forward to working with the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis to improve the quality of citizen security data. The project is based on the premise that reliable crime statistics are critical for measuring changes in crime levels, monitoring national and regional responses, developing and evaluating the effectiveness of citizen security policies, supporting the analysis and understanding of national crime and violence trends, and supporting, and very importantly, supporting evidence-based decision-making. So, in short, reliable data allows you to accurately measure the impact of crime and violence and design the appropriate policy and programmatic responses. So, in order to contribute to this broader reduction in youth crime and violence, the CARISECURE project focuses on three outputs. The first is standardized and disaggregated crime data sources are established to facilitate identification and measurement of youth risk and resilience factors. So here the focus very much on improving national capacities to collect citizen security data that allows for comparability across units and across time. Administrative records held by public institutions such as police, prosecutors, courts are especially important here. And the quality of data is really of the utmost importance. Output two is that evidence-based decision analysis of crime and violence data is carried out to inform policymaking and programming. In short, that the data needs to be transformed through analysis into actionable evidence that can be used for decision making. What is the data that we have? What does that data mean? And then what are the policy options that flow from that? Finally, the third output, evidence-based improved decision-making on youth crime and violence is based on available evidence at the national, sub-regional, regional level. So again, once a strong evidence base has been built, mechanisms need to be developed to systematically use that evidence to create policies and programs. In some ways, this will call for a new way of working, much more integration between different units, and may require the revitalization of existing structures such as interministerial committees, for example. It also calls for broader stakeholder involvement in decision-making. Now, over the next 2 days, you will have the opportunity to discuss each of these outputs in much greater detail and offer recommendation as to how these targets can be met here in St. Kitts. We anticipate that by improving the availability, the comparability, the reliability, and the analysis of disaggregated citizen security data, this project will complement your ongoing efforts to create the environment that prevents and limits youth participation in criminal activities. In closing, I'd very much like to express our sincerest appreciation to the Ministry of National Security, the St. Kitts Department of Youth Empowerment, and the Ministry of Sustainable Development and other ministries as well for the inputs which we have received during the citizen security dialogues, bilateral meetings, and a whole host of other consultations. The strong partnerships we have forged, for example, with Mr. Osmond Petty, the Permanent Secretary of National Security, and his team, as well as Mr. Pierre Liebert, the Acting Director of Youth Affairs, will play a crucial role in the implementation of this project. I'd also like to express again our gratitude to the U.S. mission for USAID mission for the Eastern and Southern Caribbean for their support in conceptualizing this project, and of course for their generous financial support as well. So I look forward to working with all of you very closely over the coming years and to your active participation over the next 2 days. Thank you all very much.